And in case you've been living under a rock for the last couple of days, you probably know that former vice presidential candidate Sarah Palin had an appearance last night here in town. Now, we've got for you now an extended excerpt from her speech at the Oil Palace.
You know, so if anyone like, say, the president or his left-wing surrogates in the lamestream media want to keep suggesting that I or others who are pro-energy, independent, pro-drilling advocates, that somehow that we are too cozy with big oil, you guys feel free to shout out to them, you lie, because it isn't true. And their other argument is that because I and other domestic energy advocates support the free market, pro-drilling, that we can't possibly be in favor of strict oversight. And man, these guys in the White House, they are just so blind to ever believe that. I am for strict oversight because I'm for that allowance for drilling. I want this most exceptional country in the nation to be free, to be prosperous, to not be beholden to the foreign countries that soon we are going to be bowing to if we become more reliant on them to drill for us. I am a firm believer in the free market. I know that you are too, but being pro-free market doesn't mean being for or against any particular company or any particular industry. No, it means being a believer in competition and an honest level playing field, and for government really to get out of the way and let the private sector do what it does best. But government does have a key role to play in overseeing some of our natural resource developments, obviously, because our natural resource development is so impacting on our economy and on our environment. The president and the anti-energy independence crowd, they don't seem to understand how one can be pro-free market, and pro-drilling, and pro-constitutionally limited government, and at the same time be pro-strict oversight, all at the same time. That is what they cannot understand and what they can't wrap their arms around. They don't get this because they don't understand the proper role of government. Barack Obama and his aides, his czars in the White House, I do not believe that they understand the proper role of government in the free market. Under their watch, government has its priorities so skewed and its fingers into so much that it has no business being in, that it's forgotten what it really should be doing. What should it be doing? It should be focusing on national security, first and foremost, and appropriate regulation of industries like the energy sector, because if they're lax or if they're careless, well, there are far-reaching adverse consequences for the public, for our economy, for our environment, and we're seeing that in the Gulf. Government can and must play an appropriate oversight role. Such oversight is in the best industry of our nation, and the public and industry, because the only way the public will trust industry to develop our resources is if they can prove that they can do this safely, ethically, responsibly. So that's my record, and when I say drill, baby, drill, we're not naive about some corruption within industry. Like any other industry, yep, there's some corruption in there, and I'm not naive about the need for strict government oversight. And I'm not unmindful of the potential tragedy of an oil spill. No Alaskan will ever forget that day in 1989 when we got word that the Exxon Valdez oil spill was taking place and polluting our waters, our shorelines, and around Bly Reef in Alaska, millions of gallons of North Slope crude pouring into our pristine waters. Alaskans, like my own family, who make their living off the water. In fact, today, Todd's in Bristol Bay with our oldest son, Track, who's home from his year-long deployment in Iraq. They're over on our commercial fishing grounds. And we, making our living off the water, we're seeing what's going on in the Gulf, and we as Alaskans, our heart is broken for them because we've been there too. 20-some years ago, with that spill in Alaska, heartbroken to see the terrible unfolding of the consequences now of the spill on their lands and in their waters in the Gulf. Alaskans feel for them. And that is why our heart goes out to the people of the Gulf states today. They're facing fears of the unknown, and we Alaskans understand that, what they're going through. 20 years later, when I was governor, I had to file an amicus brief against Exxon in favor of the plaintiffs to get Exxon to finally pay up what they owed Alaskan victims. And thousands of Alaskans in those 20 years, the fishermen, they died. It's a whole other generation now that finally received some compensation. So how dare BP put the Gulf victims through such a thing? We have to make sure that BP will not do this, will not do what Exxon did to Alaskans all those years ago. But see, we've learned a lot since then. And we've also learned more about government's proper role and not violating the separation of powers, which I think Obama is kind of flirting with also, some government overreach. We are a rule of laws, not a rule of presidential fiats that I think President Obama would rather have sometimes, it seems. So anyone who wants to chastise anyone for believing in drill, baby, drill should keep this in mind. I first said those three little words when I was running for the #2 job in our country. And if I had won, my duty in the White House would have been to help our country towards becoming more energy independent, because I understand why we need to be.